where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. Well, today is the third Friday of the month. It's also Dr. John McDougall's 77th birthday, in case you want to send him an email.
Happy birthday, Dr. McDougall.
Yeah, or send him a message on social media. It's his birthday, and it means the third Friday of the month. It means it's time for The Doctor Is In, Q&A with Ron Weiss, MD. Welcome, Dr. Weiss. Are you on your break now? You're having a little snack?
I can just what the doctor ordered to keep himself away.
That is hilarious.
Apples.
Well, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. That is hilarious. Well, good. It just shows that you practice what you preach.
I'm trying to, and I try. It's funny with apples. I love apples, but it's a love and it's mostly a love and not really a hate thing. I only like certain specific kinds of apples.
And what kind would those be? Maybe a gala?
And I tire of them out of season. I never want an apple in the summertime. I only feel like I can eat them during the cool weather, like starting in the fall, and you could never get me to eat one in the summer or August. So, so there are two, for people who are interested, there are two levels of apples. Generally speaking, they're the old apples, and then they're the new apples. So this apple is what was it? It was a Cosmic Crisp.
Oh, those are really good.
You like them?
I do. Have you ever had the Envy apple?
I like that very much. I think we have similar taste.
Yeah,
that is so these are all new apples. The Envy, the Cosmic Crisp, the give me like Sweet Tango or whatever. You see that one? What else? Oh, you know what's the crunchiest, like even crunchier than Honeycrisp? It is the Honeybee. Have you ever had that?
I haven't heard that one. I've had there's one I like that's yellow. I think it's called the Opal, OPAL. Those
yes,
are good.
I do like that one. And it's a kind of a weird apple. It's like this deep yellow. It's like this almost like a deep fluorescent yellow, and the inside of it's kind of yellowish, the white part. But the thing that all these modern apples have in common is they're trademarked, and a company owns the trademark. You can never grow these apples in your backyard, or if you're a little farm, or if you want to, because they're licensed to huge growers. So you don't have access to them except in the supermarket. Whereas the old apples, you can buy trees yourself, grow them, and enjoy them.
So they have a monopoly even on apples.
They do, and it wasn't like that up until like a decade or so ago. Apples used to be like in the free domain. You could, if you liked a particular apple, you could go and get it from the nursery. It's not true anymore. The newer apples, they've even found the corporations have even found out a new way to make money and protect their profits from apple trees.
I like using an apple cutter though, and I like the one that has 16 instead of 8. And then I feel like I get more apple that way.
That is a good strategy.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what I found out the other day too? That was a little bit disturbing.
What?
And if you have any questions, do you ever get any questions on microplastics?
I'm sure we have in the past.
Apples, from what I saw in the analytics, was one of the plant foods highest in microplastics.
Wow.
Apples and carrots.
Sheesh.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, I guess we all are going to have to start growing our own food.
I guess so.
Yeah. Nice. Are you up to taking a few questions from our fine viewing audience who are kind enough to actually send them in advance, which we appreciate so much because we can save them. Okay. Well, let's get started. All right. Okay. Here's a question from Karen. I'll be going for a blood test mid-June, and my DO told me to discontinue all supplements for 2 to 3 weeks except for vitamin D. Do you agree with this? And what about B12?
Well, first of all, I've never told my patients to discontinue supplements upon a blood draw. I'm not aware, and these are, I'm drawing from my own experience. I am not aware that there's information that says that the just by taking a single day supplement or a couple of that it can interrupt or can alter the basal level of the vitamin in your bloodstream. And I don't think that's necessary. I think that it's my experience that when people are taking vitamin D and vitamin B12, basically, if you're deficient, you will tank yourself up with these vitamins. Let's say D, for example. Let's say the normal level of vitamin D is from 30 to 100. Let's say you come in to see me and your level is 15. It's quite deficient. And if you're taking the vitamin D, basically, I tell patients to take on average 2,000 units of vitamin D every day. And initially they will rise from 15, but they're not going to keep going, out of sight to 40 and 50 and 100 and 110. They will level off for the average person, probably around 40 if they're taking 2,000 a day. And they're just going to stay there in that steady state. And it's the same thing with B12. You reach a level and you just don't go beyond it. So I don't really see any value in cutting out the supplements on the day of or in proximity to you getting blood tests. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, because don't they often check for when they're doing blood tests? Don't they often even check your supplement level anyway?
Who do I or
well,
do
not you, but I mean, a lot of times when I'm going for my annual physical, they're checking things like vitamin B12 and vitamin D anyway.
Yeah, those are the two things that we check. And many doctors, they don't, a lot of people check vitamin D. And many people, doctors don't check B12 unless they're tuned into plants. It's not a common thing. But vitamin D, a lot of doctors check. And I just want to put this out there that is controversial. It is controversial. I know, there's a lot of there's conflicting data that has been presented. There was a large study that was presented that was I believe it was in the New England Journal a couple of years ago that of many thousands of people that showed that taking vitamin D supplements as you get older did not prevent fractures. And after that, there were a lot of doctors saying you should just never check vitamin D at all anymore because it doesn't make a difference. But I don't believe that's correct. Yeah, we should check it. I think there are advantages to taking vitamin D, or at least to maintaining your level, in a normal range. So what I was going to say is I don't really think that there's a lot of validity in taking other supplements or checking your levels in them because it doesn't really necessarily mean anything. So I think when this lady says she was told to stop all supplements, it's probably B12 and D, and that's it.
Okay, thank you. This is from a fellow New Jerseyan. It's anonymous, and she says, any advice you can provide for this old Jersey girl will be appreciated. I am scheduled for robot-assisted surgery, which can take up to 4 hours to complete, excluding recovery room time. She doesn't say what kind of surgery, early June, and have been asked to drink 8 10-ounce glasses of Ensure pre-surgery clear carbohydrate beverage, 7 p.m., 10 p.m., and 7 p.m. before the procedure. Yikes. I don't want to drink this. I can instead do a sugar-free Gatorade, which to me is similar junk, but will provide the same assumed benefits of Ensure. Dr. Weiss, how should I proceed? Ensure is ERAS approved to minimize nausea and vomiting, but my pristine gut is already in turmoil at the thought of being sullied by this script.
And that is such a nice and a question, which we don't hear very often. I don't think we've ever had a question on Ensure, right?
Not really, no.
Or Boost. Boost is the drink, the nutrition drink that you these days. I used to see it a lot in the hospitals. You don't really see it much anymore. Now you see Boost because I think Nestle is the manufacturer of that one. But they're all the same. They are basically, I guess they're promoted as meal replacements. They're supposedly total nutrition, right? You could just open up this can and drink this can and get all the nutrients you need as determined by the hospital dietitian. But what they don't determine or tell you is that it will kill you. When you look at the total sheet, yes, you will be getting X grams of fat. Yes, you will be getting this much protein. Yes, you will be getting this much carbohydrate. Yes, you will be getting this much water. They're basically these macronutrients. And then they put in vitamin C and vitamin A, and they put in, these chemical, artificial synthetic vitamins that were made in a vitamin factory. They put those in there. So you can supposedly live on this. But the fact is, it is the worst, most highly processed. It is ultra processed as ultra processed can become. You think potato chips are ultra processed? And I know you wrote a book, right? Called Unprocessed. Mm-hmm. The can of Ensure or Boost is the most processed food that there is. It doesn't even resemble any of its components that it came from. So I think that oftentimes we are confronted with doctors in a hospital setting or surgeons or doctors who are going to do procedures on you, or and they don't understand what you've been through. They don't understand. They've never read any of Dr. Esselstyn's book or Colin Campbell's or Dr. McDougall's, or they have no basis or information or education in nutrition. And so they're telling you to do this in order to better get you through surgery. It will give you worse outcomes. It will make it harder for you to get off the ventilator, artificial, this life support. They put you on a ventilator, right? If you're having a general surgery with general anesthesia. And I'll tell you why I know this in a moment. It'll make your recovery times longer. So don't do that. Don't. You need to eat a whole food, plant-based diet before the surgery. You need to have, I would just make sure you're getting enough protein. And when I say enough protein, not 40 grams of protein a day, make it 60. Because, they're probably, I don't know what operation you're having, but they're probably cutting through muscle. If it's an abdominal operation, they're cutting through skin and connective tissues. You need access to a lot of protein because you will be in an anabolic or healing or building state to build tissues, to knit yourself back together again as you're healing from this operation. You don't want to have low protein levels. You want to have high. So just make sure you're getting 60 grams of protein from whole plant food sources like tempeh or soybeans or edamame or black beans or stuff like that, or broccoli, stuff like that. Add it up. Kale has, I think, 4 grams per cup. Just kale does. Just make sure you're getting that, and that's it. Don't go there. I have just this one reminiscence that I will tell you about. My dear father-in-law had a mitral valve reconstruction or repair when he was in his early 80s at one of New York City's best hospitals. And we chose the best surgeon, the one who did this the most in the country. And I remember beforehand, so we were trying to do, my father-in-law, he lived on a diet of Ritz crackers and cheddar cheese for most of his life. And so by the time he got to this operation, 2 of his coronary arteries were clogged up. They did a bypass on those. They had to fix his mitral valve. So we tried to prepare him for this open heart surgery by forcing him to go on this, a really excellent whole food plant-based diet, which is, like I told you, we tried to get his protein up to 60 grams to make sure he'd heal his tissues well. And 2 weeks beforehand, he went into the heart surgeon, and the heart surgeon found out what he was eating. You're eating sweet potatoes, and you're eating like wheat berries, and you're eating like tempeh. What? He said, you've got to start eating chicken. He said, there's not enough protein in that. You need to eat chicken a couple of times a day. And so it just goes to show you. And by the way, when we didn't listen, we kept my father-in-law on the diet, and when he was done with the operation, the doctor came up to us and remarked, he said, he's never seen anyone get off a ventilator as quickly as my father-in-law did. After they cracked his chest open, he had open heart surgery. And the recovery nurses said, oh my God, he was awake so quickly. He healed all of his wounds. His sternum had to knit back together. You need protein to do that, right? All these things. He was out of the hospital within days. So, and it's my experience with all my patients who go through surgery. Anytime there's a major surgery, my patients come back and tell me, Dr. Weiss, the surgeon said, we never saw anyone get better so quickly. As Dr. McDougall say, it's the food, right? It's the food. Happy birthday, Dr. McDougall.
Yeah. Nice. Thank you. That's inspiring. Yeah, it's amazing how much processed crap is out there. And they could ostensibly, if they need whatever Ensure does, somebody could make a healthy version, I'm sure.
Listen, there is, you know them. I think we've talked about this before. There are healthy versions of tube feedings for people who can't eat at all, where they have tubes.
Yeah, you did mention that. So if there's healthy tube feeding, there's probably healthy.
Yeah, but the problem with that, AJ, is with the tube feedings, you don't have to worry about taste.
That's true.
Right? Because the person doesn't have it's going directly into their stomach. It's not going through their mouth. Here, they would have to whip up a special recipe. Hey, maybe this is a new challenge for you. You're the chef.
Well, okay.
Hey, listen, did you ever think of writing a book, follow up to your book, Unprocessed? How about ultra processed?
That's already out there, isn't there? Yeah, that's crazy. That's, sometimes I go to these big box stores to get healthy things, but when you think of the amount of processed foods, you'll look in people's carts and literally sometimes that's all they eat,
It's all there is.
It's
all there is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They make it taste
addictive
and affordable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. Well, here's a great question about your favorite subject, lifestyle medicine, or one of your favorite subjects other than farming. So Evan would like to know if he is a 67-year-old male who has mildly high blood pressure, mildly high blood glucose, mildly high LDL and APOB, and low HDL, and his doctor wants to put him on a statin simvastatin, 5 milligrams, but is hesitant. He'd rather lower all the bad numbers through lifestyle. What are your thoughts? Is changing lifestyle and being good enough while heading into older age? So it can be done, right? It's worth a try.
We know people who are in hospice at the end of their life, right? Who completely reversed their condition and lived, many more years. That's the story. I'm thinking of one story. Are you aware of Mama Says? The food
They
company?
stopped their food delivery. I
Right.
think it's just a cookie now. Something called an all-day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the way the company started was the mother of Meg, one of the co-founders. That's what happened. She had a heart failure at 80 years old, and they found Dr. Esselstyn's book. The mom was sent home for hospice to die because of the heart failure, and they started feeding her whole plant foods, and she completely reversed it. I mean, I think she is past now, but she was living for years, taking ukulele lessons, swimming driving around town, for years. So for this gentleman, yes. It sounds, the good news about you is that you are young. 67, I don't consider old. You just became a senior citizen, right? And that it sounds like you say these are mild metabolic problems, like some markers are so not good. Maybe the sugar is not so good. The cholesterol is not so good. But it's not Gafala, right? It's not, it's like, oh my God, you've got to start these drugs. It sounds like they've been watching like a very slow train wreck. Not a train wreck, maybe like a fender bender in slow motion. And lifestyle medicine is excellent. Whole plant foods, exercise, sleep, stress management for completely reversing that. I wouldn't take a statin agent. I would choose the good habits. And you know why? Because ultimately, as Dr. Furman likes to say, that prescription is a permission slip to keep eating the stuff that made you sick already, right? Because don't you agree, Chef AJ? Because if you know that you have to reverse your problems by eating well, or you know that you can keep eating the same foods you are, but you'll manage it with a pill, are you going to change your diet on the pill? No. You'll keep eating the same foods. You'll lower your cholesterol with this simvastatin until you have chest pain, and then you'll have to go into the emergency room and they'll have to put a stent in. Or those foods will cause an elevation of your A1C and you'll get diabetes and you'll be on Ozempic or something like that. The disease causing process of the foods you're eating is not stopping. It will continue to worsen your condition. Simvastatin's not going to stop that. Go with the lifestyle.
Or at least try the lifestyle, right? You can always go on the drugs at another time.
You can try it. There are so many of these jump starts now, right? Do yourself a favor, do something for a few weeks. Dr. Furman has one. Plant Powered Metro New York has one. They do it for free. We have one on our website. I think it's $99. They're free ones. Chip does one. They're available. Just try it. And if you don't like it after a few weeks, take the simvastatin.
Right. At least give it a try. Okay. This question is from Debbie, and she wants to know if you feel that everyone over 60 should just automatically have the shingles vaccine.
Yeah, it's 50.
Oh, okay.
It's 50. 50 is the age. So, I have been advising. Yes. And the reason why is that, my guidance and advice, as does every doctor's, comes through a filter. When you ask me that question, AJ, and says, well, this is such and such a problem. Here's the question. What would you do? Or what would you advise patients to do? My advice comes through 40 years, almost 40 years now of practicing. And what I have seen sprinkled across my professional career are not many, but a small group of people who have post-herpetic neuralgia. Post-herpetic neuralgia is a severe pain syndrome that comes, and we don't know why it affects some people and not others, but it is a lasting and permanent, usually permanent, pain syndrome that is disabling. And it comes from permanent irritation of the nerve that the shingles virus, the chickenpox virus, was living in. And, across my life as a physician, I've had to keep people on narcotics for the rest of their life from pain on their face, which was so severe they couldn't live. Stuff like that. It was just horrific. So because of that, if I can prevent, let's say, 20 people during my life's practice of being in that much pain by telling everyone to get a shingles vaccine, do it. It's worth it. The other considerations with getting shingles are, although that's the main worry. It's the post-herpetic neuralgia, and it happens only in a small number of patients. Yes, the attack itself of the shingles is painful, but usually for most people, it is self-limiting. But here's another consideration. There are a number of people who get the shingles outbreak on the face, and it sometimes can involve the eye. And if it gets into the cornea, it could blind you. It could create permanent corneal scarring, and that wouldn't be good. You would be a candidate for corneal transplantation. That's another reason I have for recommending the vaccine. So those two things, and they don't happen commonly, but the vaccine is highly effective. I think it's something like 95 to 97% effective at preventing the shingles.
Wow, yeah. Thank you. Okay, so this could be a controversial question, but not necessarily.
Controversial.
Well, here's the thing. I'm sure you're familiar with the Pleasure Trap book, how they talk about how most problems are actually caused by excesses and not deficiencies, and yet what people are worried about are sometimes what some other people might think of are the minutia. But there's a whole thing going around now, like you can never have bananas and blueberries now, and so Paul wants to.
I know.
Yeah, so that's the big thing. We've got all kinds of problems in the world, but that's what everybody's focusing on. And so Paul says, Dr. Weiss, do bananas really interfere with the absorption of blueberries?
Yeah. Well, that goes to, that goes to the subject of smoothies.
Or just even, I mean, I have recipes for muffins, blueberry muffins, where I'm sweetening them with banana, and people often put banana and blueberries on their oatmeal, so it's not just a smoothie. So,
well, I think where this comes from is Dr. Greger's. Dr. Greger had a video or some podcast or something where he was talking about bananas, and he was specifically talking about smoothies, but putting bananas in smoothies. But it could happen without smoothies as well. But in the context that he presented this with, apparently, when some fruits when you cut some fruits open and break their skin, they oxidize. And you can see the oxidation occurring. You know it because the flesh starts to brown, right? Examples are some apples. Now, some apples are bred to be or selected to be resistant, right? If you bite an apple and you leave it on the counter, you'll come back. Most apples are going to be a little brown on the white part. The same thing happens to bananas, right? If you peel a banana, you leave it on the counter, it's going to start turning brown. Avocados, the same thing happens with, right? So, um, so yeah, there's a substance which he talks about in connection with this, that I believe, if I remember correctly, it's called polyphenol oxidase. And it is the chemical that it is a molecule that's inherent in the banana, in the browning banana, the browning apple, the food substance that's turning brown, and it's oxidizing the food that we were just talking about. And the problem is that blueberries are very high in polyphenols. That's the stuff that is giving them their power, right? It's those high level phytonutrients or plant substances that I often talk about. And so you have this browning banana, this oxidizing banana creating a substance which disables the most powerful attribute of blueberries. So it's wiping out, and pretty completely from what I remember, the polyphenol content of the blueberries. So if you do this and you put make a smoothie, and a lot of people put blueberries and bananas in smoothies, right? Because they're trying to get polyphenols, and then the banana is very sweet. So you have this interaction going on in there, and you're wiping out the benefit of most of the benefit of the blueberries. So what I would say is, and the same thing can happen in your stomach. Let's say if you're not making as you said, Chef AJ, if the banana is in your stomach at the same time as the blueberries. But hey, look, I think the important thing to remember is what you said in the beginning. Look, the reason why you're having the blueberry, there's more reasons why you're having the blueberry muffin other than to get the benefit of 6 blueberries that are in the muffin or whatever number of blueberries. You can, I wouldn't torture yourself. But you know, there are other good things, and right, there are whole grains in your blueberry muffins. Yes, there is flaxseed, or I don't know what your recipe is. There's other good stuff, and I wouldn't hyper focus on trying to save the polyphenols of a handful of blueberries. You know, if you're that concerned, have a separate bowl of frozen like wild blueberries later on in the day, and they'll have double the number of phenols as the cultivated blueberries, and you can get them that way.
Yeah.
I think it was a sort of it was an arresting thing to do, because I think so many people have smoothies, and perhaps that's their only intake of blueberries, right? I guess they mix them into the smoothies and then they eat that. So yeah, you're not getting it. And I generally don't recommend smoothies anyway, because I don't think they're not optimally healthy smoothies.
Thank you. Eating an apple is always a good idea, though.
Yeah. Whole plant foods, not macerated, not pulverized, not liquefied.
Or as Dr. Goldhammer says,
foods.
not heated, beaten, and treated. Yeah,
Man,
you're gonna love.
That sounds like Ensure.
Yeah, exactly. You're gonna love him when he comes to your conference.
I will.
So Lisa, who is also a girl from New Jersey, so that means she could actually see you in person if she wanted. She's actually asking on behalf of her brother diagnosed with osteonecrosis above the knee, the femur not the head 2 years ago, discovered during scans after hip replacement. PT, he had some PT, but was advised to stop after the necrosis. So far, no doctor has been able to offer him any solution for the problem other than pain medication, specifically gabapentin. His hemoglobin, his hematologist believes his hemoglobin caused the problem. He's 52 years old and is not SOS free. She doesn't even say if he's plant-based. Is there any recommendations how someone can cure, reverse, or alleviate pain of this condition besides taking gabapentin?
So for those of you who are not familiar with osteonecrosis, osteo means bone and necrosis means death. It's bone death.
Ooh, sounds bad.
They're living structures. It's not just rock. It's a cancellous material. It's a like a cave-like network of hard, bony, mineralized structure. But in between that, there are living cells, and the living cells make the bone, hard bone structure. However, because of certain reasons, like trauma, where blood supply to the bone is lost, or because of steroid use, you can compromise the living portion of the bone, and you can lose the blood supply, and then the bone dies. And if the bone dies, that's osteonecrosis. I don't know the details of this person's case, but osteonecrosis is a serious problem. Oftentimes, if it's serious enough, they will replace operations are done to replace the bone part. They'll put in an artificial joint or piece of bone. Probably the most common place that's involved in osteonecrosis is the hip. And people who have osteonecrosis of their hip, they need a new hip. You know who had this problem, Chef AJ? Do you remember Bo Jackson? Wait, did Bo Jackson? Maybe.
You mean the sports figure? Do you mean the sports figure?
Yeah. I think he may have had, I'm trying to remember back if he had just terrible osteoarthritis or if he actually lost the blood supply, if he had osteonecrosis. I can't remember now. But in any event, it requires hip replacement. So that's the upper end of the femur. It sounds like this person has a very unusual, more rare complication, the lower end of the femur near the knee. And though that's not, those kinds of fixes are more difficult. I would suggest the following. First of all, I would definitely recommend as an empiric trial. And what does empiric mean? Empiric means when you do something empirically, it means you're trying it out to see if it works. So as an empiric trial, I would recommend that he adopt a diet of whole plant foods. And this is the reason why. I don't know what this gentleman's weight is, but most people in America are overweight, right? If he is overweight, whole food plant-based diet would make him lose weight. And if he were overweight and he lost weight, oh my God, that would take enormous loading forces off of this sick bone. It might help his pain. Number two, whole food plant-based diets are anti-inflammatory, right? AJ? They take away inflammation of all kinds, including musculoskeletal inflammation. I have had many patients with musculoskeletal problems, everything from osteoarthritis to rheumatoid arthritis to all kinds of joint issues to tendinitises. And when they adopted a diet of whole plant foods, the vast majority of them got better, if not completely remitted from their pain. So the thing you have to remember is, osteonecrosis of itself, the bone is dead, right? It's dead. Dead things don't feel pain. So the question is, why is he having pain? Well, it may be at the margins where the bone is alive. It may be from other reasons we may not really understand. So empirically, I don't see how a diet of whole plant foods can help you based on the two possibilities I just gave you. Let's see what else. Lastly, if he hasn't had a second opinion, my preference is I like to send my patients to the Hospital for Special Surgery in New York because they do, that's in our region, the New York, New Jersey metropolitan area. It is my feeling that they do unusual and rare operations. And I almost always, in my experience, they have very good outcomes with my patients. They do things that other that have been very difficult for other doctors to do. So I definitely get a consult or a second or third opinion if you've already been to two from the Hospital for Special Surgery. It's not far away. You're in New Jersey, and that's what I would do.
Thank you. Here is a question from Trisha. Dr. Weiss, I've been biking a lot this past year, about 70 miles a week, either outside or in an inside bike. Recently, I've had tailbone pain. I stopped biking for the past month, used the treadmill to walk for exercise. How long does it take tailbone pain to heal, and any ideas on ways to heal it?
Yeah. So how long did she say she was biking for?
70 miles a week.
But how, which is not, I know a lot of people who will do 100 miles in a day, but they don't have the problem. But how did she say how long she's been doing it for?
She hasn't. And how do you ascertain your miles on an inside bike? Because I spin for an hour a day, but it doesn't tell me the miles. I wonder if she stood up, would she still have the tailbone pain? Because I never sit on the bike. I do the whole thing standing. So I find it more uncomfortable to sit.
The question is, how long has she been doing this for?
Yeah, she didn't say.
She's been doing it a long time. And how long did she say she has the coccyx pain for?
She didn't say. If you're watching live, Trisha, type it in the chat. This was submitted. So I did.
The question is, so to be a doctor, you have to be kind of like a private investigator. You have to start going into the weeds. And when I was a young man in high school, my first mentor, who was Dr. Menger, he was a researcher in hypertension at NYU, taught me that you can find the answer to the patient's problem and diagnosis if you talk to them long enough. 90% of the time, you don't even have to examine the patient. That the diagnosis and the answer is in the story of the patient. So as it pertains to this young lady, the question is, if you told me, I've been doing this for 2 years, I've been biking 70 miles a week, and if you told me that this has only been there for the past 2 months, something changed, right? That's what I mean, getting the details. It means that something happened to cause this. It's not necessarily, yes, I get it. The pain in your tailbone, which by the way, the medical name is coccydynia, dynia meaning pain, and coccyx, it's the bottom of your spine, can be a very durable pain. It can be there for a long time, like weeks and months once it gets started. And it can be very painful and difficult to sit. It's usually from people who fall and hit their tailbones, not from sitting. But however, you have to remember a bike seat, they depends what kind of cushion you have on it, how hard it is, if it's soft. But I've seen bike seats that are very, you've too, right? They hurt you when you sit on them
really
if you hurt a while.
Yeah.
Like I'm not a bike rider, I'm more of a swimmer, but some of those road bikes with those little, that's not for me. I don't like sitting on those things. So in any event, I think something changed. Here's some possibility to lose weight, right? did you have padding on your rear end? And then you started eating whole food plant-based like 6 months ago. And did you lose a significant amount of weight off your derriere, which gave you less padding? And now that hard seat is in contact with your coccyx. Um, did you have a seat cover? Did something change? Did you go on a different bike? You have to work out the details. Now, if you tell me I just started biking 70 miles a week, before I was biking 10 miles a week, and now 2 months ago when this started, I increased it, then yes, it's the amount of time you're sitting on the bike. The bottom line is coccydynia can be very troublesome. And unfortunately for you, all I can tell you is the cause is your bike seat, and you have to modify that. Personally, what I would do is I would look into all of these possible questions that I just mentioned to see if you can accommodate. And if you can't accommodate for one of those reasons, I would rest for a while, let the pain try and go away, and then restart again with maybe a different seat, a different bike, less miles, and enjoy some other kind of exercise for now, like jogging, running, or swimming, or elliptical, or something. But keep moving.
Great, thanks. This is from Anonymous. I had an emergency cholecystectomy about 4 years ago. Despite being on a plant-exclusive, mostly whole food diet, I'm still having constant, unexpected, runny, thick bowel movements like batter. They've put me on a binding medication, cholecystiramine, that I'm trying desperately to get off of. I also don't want to take a fiber supplement due to the additives and allergens in those. Are there any binding type foods that you recommend eating instead? FYI, raw foods make me embarrassingly gassy and give me stomach pains. Would agar work?
Agar.
That's something you use like to thicken, like
Yeah.
Macrobiotic people
use it to grow bacteria on, right? In laboratory.
I'm not sure. I know the macrobiotic people use it to make Jello, or to make their form of animal Jello.
Yeah. So a cholecystectomy means surgical removal of the gallbladder, and that is usually done when you have a sick gallbladder. It usually is because you have stones in the gallbladder. And the stones that settle out in the gallbladder is a little balloon or reservoir which sits below the liver. It collects bile from the liver, and then this balloon squeezes the bile down a duct into your intestine when you're eating fats in the diet. So usually, people get problems with their gallbladder. It's a food-driven disease. Generally speaking, it's eating foods that are high in fat and cholesterol, and then that causes rocks to precipitate out into this balloon reservoir, and then you get problems. There are rocks sitting in there, and they have to remove very painful. They have to remove your gallbladder. Most people. So just FYI for anyone, if you're listening, if you've been told that you have this gallbladder disease of stones, cholelithiasis is the medical name. The chole is the gallbladder, and lith means stones, cholelithiasis. I have had a number of patients who've had success in completely reversing the stones, AJ, on a diet of whole plant foods. They've gone away. And that I don't think is, from what I last looked, I don't think it's known in the medical literature. But definitely, there are doctors who wanted to do cholecystectomies on a couple of my patients, and they refused. And then they adopted a whole food plant-based diet. And when we looked at them 6 months, a year later, there was no stones and their gallbladder was fine. So if you're listening, you have this problem, whole plant foods is your answer. Now, once the gallbladder has been removed, like in this young lady, what can we do? Well, most gallbladders that are removed will leave the patient with no reservoir, but the bile, the detergent, drips into the intestines still. It acts as a detergent. It breaks up fats, and the patient is fine. They don't really have any symptoms. It's not clear as to what this lady's exact problem is. Perhaps the delivery of bile is now inefficient into her intestine. Does she have unbroken down fats that are not being broken up and emulsified and absorbed because there's a deficiency of bile? I don't know. You would need to have your stool tested to see what is going on. And if you haven't done that, I would, and maybe you have, because it sounds like you're probably going to a GI doctor. If they do not find that you have a fat problem in your stool that's causing these abnormal stools, I would first try to upgrade your diet to a high quality diet. The fact that you cannot eat raw foods tells me that you have food intolerance. There's something going on. And someone should get to the bottom of this. Why can't you eat raw foods? Raw foods are important. And I'm not a raw foodist. I eat plenty of cooked foods like AJ does. But they're important. There's something, I think something is going on. Remember, raw foods in general, they don't have fat because raw foods are plants, right? They're leaves, they're fruits, right? And what fats to speak of do they have? So I don't think it's a fat like intolerance problem because you got your gallbladder kicked out. I think there's something wrong. You're not tolerating foods well. Oftentimes, I have found when this is the case, it's a gut microbiome problem. And it's sort of like a catch-22. The reason why your gut microbiome is deficient, the trillions of bacteria, the ecosystem you have in your intestines that keep you healthy, the reason why it's deficient is because you're not eating enough whole plant foods and a diversity of them. But of course, if it's deficient, when you try to eat beans and legumes and whole grains and other kinds of raw vegetables, you're going to get abdominal distress, right? So a lot of the time, what you have to do is you have to start from the beginning, a clean slate, and go very slowly and introduce small amounts of selected foods and then build upon that. And then you can improve your microbiome by that way, and you can reduce your food intolerance, and you can improve the quality of your stools. So, alert. A few of my favorite foods that have special actions in the lower intestinal tract, in the colon, because they're so resistant to digestion that they make it down there. And then they feed and help to rehabilitate your microbiome are the following. Foods that have inulin in them. For example, Jerusalem artichokes, chicory root. Like if you wanted to drink a cup of like coffee substitute, instead of drinking coffee, you could drink chicory root drink. That has enormous amounts of inulin. Inulin is a certain starch which is perfect for the lower intestinal tract. And then there are other things like kodo millet and sorghum are grains that have very, very resistant starches that wait to get down to the lower intestinal tract before absorption. And fiber in general, making sure that you're eating a large number of grams of fiber, and that would be a minimum of 40 grams of fiber a day, and optimally at least 60. So those would be my That's my advice for you.
Wow, Dr. Weiss,
And
thank you.
by the way, for anyone who is in New Jersey or the New York area, if you need more personal assistance, I am a working medical doctor. I do have a primary care practice. We do have coaches who can help you with that. And actually, we do have an open house, which everyone is welcome to. It's a virtual open house on May 28th. So that's in about 2 weeks. If you go to our website, that's ethosprimarycare.com. You can find out about that. We encourage everyone to come. And, I answer questions like this there, and also we give information about how our practice works and how we engage with patients and how we help them with their habits.
Well, according to an Instagram viewer named Happily Imperfect at Home, you are the best doctor in New Jersey.
Very kind. Thank you. Thank you for your appreciation, whoever said it.
Well, we have so many questions, but we know you have to get back to work, so we will ask them next month.
Thank you, AJ.
Thank you, Dr. Weiss, and thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Please come back tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific time for Ditch the Diets with Dietitian Deepa, and she's going to show you how to. I know that's a mouthful, right? It's a great name for a show.
I'm dizzy.
You would love her. She's a wonderful, she's from India. She's a wonderful plant-based dietitian that I met at the Plantrition Conference. And she's going to show us how we can eat anywhere in the world and even stay on our diet or lose weight. Thanks, Dr. Weiss. Yeah. See you soon. Take care, everyone.